Looks like we've got another mountain of post-breakup wreckage dumped right here on our virtual doorstep. Specifically, you guys are really struggling with this no-contact thing.
Seems to be a recurring theme.
Yeah. And look, we get it. You're hurting, probably glued to your ex's social media, right? Just hoping for something.
Yeah.
Anything.
Desperate for a sign.
Yeah, and you need someone to just give it to you straight. No sugarcoating. So consider us that someone.
You're going to be that someone.
This isn't some coddling session. This is the deep dive, and we are going to yank you out of the breakup fog with some hard truths, some tough love.
Exactly. And the intel you've given us, it's pretty clear what we're dealing with here. Alberto Casuso stuff, surviving no contact, how to handle those dreaded birthdays and holidays. Plus, the Unbreakable Men Clubs, their whole philosophy, silence is your fastest escape route. No messing around.
Like to the point.
Absolutely. So think of this deep dive as, tough love with a side of much-needed clarity.
Love it. So our mission, should you choose to accept it, and you really should.
You really, really should.
Is to break down why going completely cold turkey on communication, no contact, is absolutely essential after a breakup. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And then how you actually do it, how you white-knuckle your way through it. Especially when those special dates, those birthdays and anniversaries and holidays are just looming like emotional landmines. Oh, and we need to figure out what this whole painful process actually means, for getting your life back on track.
Back on track and better than before.
Exactly. So first things first, let's define this whole no contact thing. What is it, really? What are we talking about here?
Okay, straight up. It means cutting off all communication. Every single avenue. No texting, no calling, nothing.
And that includes social media, right?
Oh, absolutely. No lurking, no liking old photos.
No accidentally running into them at the coffee shop they always go to?
Please, don't even try that. And listen, do yourself a favor. Lock your phone away after, say, 2 drinks. Because we all know what happens after 3.
Or 4, those late night texts, yeah.
Yeah.
The ones you regret sending the minute you hit send.
And those will completely sabotage everything you're working towards. So just avoid it altogether.
Okay, so it's a complete blackout. Got it. But here's the thing. Some people think no contact is just a way to manipulate their ex, right? Like make them miss you, make them jealous.
Right, the whole playing hard to get thing. And look, a tiny part of you might be clinging to that fantasy.
Maybe even a big part, let's be real.
Sure, but honestly, if you're doing no contact with the sole goal of getting them back, you're missing the entire point. This isn't about them, it's about you. It's about reclaiming your sanity, your emotional stability. It's about choosing yourself.
So it's almost like hitting the reset button on your entire emotional state.
Exactly. You've been so plugged into this other person for so long, you've lost sight of yourself. You need to yank out that cord and recharge. The real victory here isn't getting them back. It's breaking free from that dependency, finding a sense of closure that actually lasts.
Right. So this isn't about games, it's about getting yourself back.
100%.
Okay, that makes sense, but
yeah,
anyone who's actually tried no contact knows it's absolute torture.
Oh, it's brutal. There's no way around that.
So why?
Yeah.
Why does it hurt so much, and why do people insist that it's the only way to actually, heal and move on?
Well, there's a fascinating biological component to this. It's almost like an addiction. Alberto Casuso talks about this in detail. Every interaction with your ex, every message, every phone call, your brain gets flooded with dopamine. You know, that feel-good chemical.
Oh, yeah, the reward system.
Exactly. And it's the same neurological pathway that's involved in substance abuse. So when you suddenly cut off all contact, your brain freaks out. It goes into withdrawal.
So it's not just in our heads. It's a real physical thing.
It's very real. Your brain is used to getting its fix of your ex. You've trained it to expect that reward. And when it doesn't get it, you experience those classic withdrawal symptoms. Anxiety, restlessness, a deep sense of loss. It can feel like you're actually going crazy.
Makes sense. I mean, you're constantly checking your phone, even though you know they're not going to message. You can't sleep. You feel like you can't breathe.
It's like trying to quit smoking cold turkey. But instead of craving nicotine, you're craving their attention, their presence, and that's a tough habit to break.
Yeah. You start thinking maybe if you just send one text, just to see how they're doing.
Don't do it. Trust me. Every time you give in to that urge, you set yourself back. You're essentially starting from day one again.
So that initial pain, the anxiety, the restlessness, it's all part of the detox process.
Exactly. As awful as it feels, it's a sign that you're actually breaking free from that emotional and neurological dependence. You're starting to heal.
We've even got some real-life examples of this. One guy, Mike, described those first few weeks of no contact as pure torture.
He wasn't exaggerating.
The constant urge to text, scrolling through old photos like some kind of masochist, memories replaying on a loop. It's rough.
And you know, what's interesting is that Mike's story shows how easy it is to get sucked back into the past. You start rewriting history in your head, focusing on the good times, forgetting all the reasons why things ended.
It's because you're hurting, and you want that hurt to stop.
But for Mike, the real breakthrough came when he realized that staying connected, even in his own head, was keeping him trapped in that cycle of pain. He was literally his own worst enemy.
So the key takeaway there is that you have to push through that initial discomfort, that agony, to reach a point where you can actually see things clearly. You can't bypass it.
No shortcuts. You've got to go through it.
Okay, so let's talk about the pitfalls, the screw-ups.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people start out strong with no contact, and then they crack.
Oh, yeah. It happens all the time.
And it usually backfires spectacularly.
Spectacularly is the right word. There's this guy, Sam, in one of the articles. His story is a classic example of how one little slip-up can completely derail everything.
Oh no, what happened?
Well, he'd managed 6 weeks of solid no contact, a real accomplishment. But then his ex sent him a casual "how are you" text, seemingly harmless.
Ugh, I can already see where this is going.
Right. And suddenly, all that progress he'd made felt completely meaningless. He interpreted her text as some grand gesture. He allowed himself to hope.
Oh, the hope. It's a killer.
And then, just like that, she casually mentioned that she was seeing someone new. Talk about a punch to the gut. He said the pain was 10 times worse than the original breakup.
Ouch. It's gotta hurt.
And it highlights a crucial, albeit uncomfortable, truth. When an ex reaches out after weeks of silence, it rarely means they want to get back together. More often than not, it's driven by their own loneliness, boredom, or maybe even just a need to check if you're still pining for them.
A little ego boost.
Exactly. And the real lesson in Sam's story is that the hope he allowed himself to feel was the actual source of that amplified pain.
Yeah. You build yourself up only to get knocked down even harder.
Precisely. And the bottom line is this. Breaking no contact is like hitting the self-destruct button on your healing. All that willpower you've mustered, all those times you resisted the urge to reach out, it all goes out the window.
You're right back at square one.
Back to square one, feeling even worse than before. So how do you actually stick to no contact? Because let's be honest, this isn't about some magical willpower. It's about strategy. It's about removing temptation.
Right. You got to be proactive about it. So what are some concrete things people can do?
Well, Mike, the guy we talked about earlier, he went scorched earth, blocked his ex on every single social media platform. His logic was simple, out of sight, out of mind.
Makes sense. If you're not constantly bombarded with their updates, it's easier to focus on yourself.
Exactly. He also deleted every photo, every message, anything that could trigger those painful memories. He didn't want any emotional landmines lurking on his phone.
Smart move.
And then he channeled all that pain, all that frustration into something productive, hit the gym like a man possessed.
Use that anger. Fuel the fire.
Right. And he even wrote down a brutally honest list of all the reasons why the relationship ended, all the bad stuff, just to remind himself why they weren't right for each other.
A little dose of reality when those rose-tinted glasses start to reappear.
Exactly. Now, Sam, after his disastrous relapse, he doubled down on the no contact, went even further, blocked her number, not just renamed it, and made a conscious effort to stop romanticizing the past. No more dwelling on what-ifs.
Facing the music head on.
Exactly. He even distanced himself from mutual friends to avoid those constant updates about her life. And most importantly, he threw himself into his work, found new purpose.
So basically, he replaced the void left by the relationship with something positive.
Exactly. And all these strategies are echoed in pretty much every article we looked at. Delete their number. Block them on social media, purge all those physical reminders, those gifts, those photos, anything that could send you spiraling.
Get rid of the emotional baggage.
Yes, shake up your routine to avoid those accidental run-ins. Find an accountability partner, a friend who will call you out when you're about to cave.
Someone who won't sugarcoat it. Someone who will give you that tough love.
Exactly. And above all, channel that energy, that heartbreak, into something positive. Into your own growth.
As one of the articles put it, growth is the ultimate revenge. Harsh, but kind of true.
Absolutely. Now let's tackle a particularly tricky aspect of no contact. Navigating those so-called special dates, birthdays, anniversaries, holidays.
Yeah, these can feel like walking through a minefield. One wrong step, and boom, you're back to square one.
It's like those dates are specifically designed to test your resolve, and you might be doing great, feeling strong, and then bam, their birthday pops up on your calendar.
And suddenly, you're fighting the urge to send that text, thinking, maybe this time it'll be different. Maybe this time they'll actually want to hear from me.
Classic magical thinking, and that's exactly what Alberto Casuso calls it, the magic date fantasy.
This idea that birthdays and anniversaries hold some mystical power to rekindle the relationship.
Right, like your perfectly crafted text message is going to make them suddenly realize what they've lost. But let's be real, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, they've moved on, and you need to do the same.
Exactly, and that's why it's so important to remember, no contact means no contact. No exceptions, not even for holidays.
So if you're thinking about sending that happy birthday text, even just to be polite, don't.
Don't do it, because every time you break that silence, you're not just hitting the reset button on your healing, you're also sending yourself a message.
What kind of message?
That you're not worth prioritizing. That your own healing isn't as important as some fleeting, probably ill-advised attempt to reconnect with someone who doesn't want to be reconnected with.
It's like a recovering alcoholic taking just one sip.
Exactly. It's a slippery slope. And what's really interesting is the psychology behind why we feel the urge to reach out on these special days. It often boils down to our own insecurities.
Insecurities? Like what?
Well, sometimes it's a desperate need for attention. Sometimes it's that irrational hope that this time will be different. Or maybe it's just the sad attempt to hold on to traditions that no longer exist.
Or maybe you just want a reaction from them. Any reaction. Just to know that you still matter.
Exactly. It's about feeding your ego. And in the article about special dates, Mike shared a particularly cringeworthy experience.
Oh, no. What did he do?
He spent weeks agonizing over the perfect birthday text for his ex. Finally sent it, and all he got back was a one-word reply. Thanks.
Ouch. That's gotta sting.
He spiraled for a month after that. A whole month, so let that be a cautionary tale.
Don't be a Mike.
Exactly. So what's the survival plan for these special days? Well, for their birthday, the advice is pretty straightforward. Delete it from your calendar, just erase it from your mind.
Out of sight, out of mind, right?
Exactly. Schedule something else for that day. Something fun, something engaging. And stay off social media. You don't need to see their friends posting happy birthday messages.
Anything to avoid temptation.
And if you're really worried about your willpower, give your phone to a trusted friend for the day. Just get it out of your hands.
Treat yourself like a recovering addict.
Exactly. Now, what if they reach out to you on your birthday?
Oh, that's a tricky one.
The advice is the same. Keep it brief. A simple thanks is more than enough. Don't read into it. Don't take the bait.
Because it might just be testing the waters.
Exactly. Seeing if you're still emotionally available. But remember, their text message isn't an invitation to rekindle things.
Don't let your hope get the best of you.
Now, for navigating the holiday season, it's all about creating new traditions. Focus on the things you enjoy, the people you love. Surround yourself with your support system.
And remember, these dates only have the power you give them. You can choose to let them control you, or you can choose to focus on your own growth, your own happiness.
Exactly. So we've talked about surviving no contact, but what's the end game here? It's not just about getting over a breakup, right? It's about something bigger.
It's about transformation.
Exactly. It's about achieving a state of genuine indifference. And in doing so, reclaiming yourself. There's a guy, James, whose story really illustrates this. He was stuck in this toxic cycle with his ex. Always the backup plan, always there to pick up the pieces.
The emotional crutch.
Exactly. But his breaking point wasn't about trying to win her back. It was about choosing his own well-being. It was about becoming indifferent to her.
So how did he do that?
Well, he made a conscious decision to not react when her name came up. He focused on building a new identity for himself based on his own values and interests. He stopped seeking her validation. He refused to be her emotional safety net.
He took back his power.
Exactly. And he started focusing on his own self-worth. He realized that true validation comes from within, not from someone else.
So he basically trained himself to not care.
In a way, yes. And that's what true freedom is. Not caring what they think, what they do, not letting their actions or opinions affect you.
Indifference is the superpower.
It really is. So let's talk about the real-world benefits of sticking to no contact. What do you actually gain from all this pain?
Because it is painful.
Oh, absolutely. But the rewards are worth it. First and foremost, you gain clarity. The emotional fog lifts, and you can finally see the relationship and the breakup for what it really was. No more rose-tinted glasses.
You see things objectively.
Exactly. And you also reclaim your power. You're no longer at their mercy. Your self-worth isn't tied to their attention anymore.
You're in control.
Yes. And that sense of control leads to a huge boost in confidence. You've proven to yourself that you can set boundaries, that you can handle tough emotions, that you're resilient.
And that confidence becomes a part of you. It's not dependent on someone else.
Exactly. You also start rediscovering who you are outside of the relationship. You reconnect with old passions, you explore new interests, and you do it all without their influence.
You become your own person again.
Exactly. And ultimately, that's what leads to true healing. Not just moving on, but genuinely letting go, finding inner peace, evolving into a stronger, more self-aware version of yourself.
It's not just about getting over them. It's about becoming the best version of you.
Absolutely. So, to wrap this up, for those of you still clinging to your phones, waiting for that text that's probably never coming.
Let it go.
No contact is going to be tough, really tough, but it's the only way to truly heal, to take back your power, and to move on with your life.
It's about choosing yourself, even when it feels impossible. It's about saying, I deserve better.
And remember, those special dates, those birthdays, those holidays, they don't have to be landmines. You can choose to see them as opportunities for growth, for creating new traditions, for focusing on your own happiness.
So here's a question to ponder. What really makes a day special? Is it a text from someone who's no longer part of your life? Or is it the progress you make in becoming the person you're meant to be, regardless of anyone else?
It's about redefining what special means to you on your own terms.
And if you need some extra support along the way, check out the Unbreakable Men Club and their Heartbreak Survival Guide newsletter. They'll give it to you straight, no sugarcoating, and right now, that's exactly what